Good evening, everyone. Here we are again, TAB Series, second edition, and starting the third quarter of the year. Wow, time's fly. And with that, a new stage in the making of architecture, fabrication, and construction. Thank you for joining us, and we all hope you enjoy this talk conducted by a special professional from Singapore today. Every month, we have a new audience joining in for the first time, so please welcome them first and explain that TAB Series is a platform presented by Cosentino and curated by Yann Follain from WITO, where we invite talent practitioners from the architecture and design community in Singapore and Southeast Asia to share their practice and insights in working towards a better future in the architecture context. So this year, the title is The Making of Architecture and the Notion of Time. 12 talks dissecting each quarter the different and challenging stages that the architecture goes through and highlight the importance of working towards a more conscious architecture, how to be more sustainable and how to build better to protect the environment. And Cosentino has a lot to say about sustainable building materials, which is what we produce for the industry. The world has changed, the consumer has changed, and sustainability and responsibility are now a requirement, a commitment, and a necessity. Cosentino is completely committed with the environment, and we are moving towards a low-carbon economy, promoting energy efficiency and emissions reduction. Actually, we are leading in the industry this movement. Last month, we launched our first carbon neutral series certified in the market. Sunlit Days, a collection of 5 colors produced with a pioneer technology called Hybrid and owned by and developed by Cosentino. Very brief. Hybrid is a technology that involves a new production process and a new composition of the product. In terms of production process, Cosentino reuses 99% of the water used daily and making also use of 100% electrical renewable energy. And related to the new composition, the formulation of the product, we have reduced the presence of crystalline silica significantly. But also for this collection, Sunlit Days, we have incorporated 20% of recycled material in line with our commitment with the circularity and waste management. So hybrid technology will be used from now on for the whole silestone production. And the result is a new renovated silestone that we call the ultimate mineral hybrid surface. Because we care, and we are leading by example. If you want to see this collection, just please come down to our showrooms to see these 5 wonderful and colorful colors that we have created. You will love it, I am sure. And well, with no more delay, let's go straight to today's talk. So let me say hello to Yann. And Yann, just take the floor, please. I stop talking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you so much. And thank you for reminding us all of the initiative towards innovation in the construction industry that Cosentino is doing. And thank you for providing such platform for architects from Singapore and the region to share their expertise. So it is very heartwarming that such a global company like Cosentino is coming from like a normal way of doing things to sustainability, to circularity. And this is the way that our industry should embrace the future towards more like carbon neutral development. The making of architecture, it is something that we've been discussing extensively since the beginning of this year with the TAB Series 2 that we are doing with Cosentino. We had fantastic speakers from Singapore and from the region. And so we are going through the different processes for the making of architecture. And so we are now looking into the construction and the detailing, the crafting of the architecture. COVID-19 which is again very strong all over the planet and even more in Southeast Asia, has forced us to slow down and to question again the way that we are practicing architecture. So that's the reason why we are looking for architects in this TAB series that can share with us their vision. And that's why for today, regarding craft, regarding the making of architecture, there is someone that I really wanted to invite, and I'm very happy, I'm very honored that she's with us today. So Yann from Goy Architects. And so I met Yann a few years ago when she was very, very young. Not that she's very, very old neither, but through an exhibition that I curated for Archifest in Singapore. And since then, Yann has continued with her partners that are across the region, Indonesia and Thailand. So Yann has developed further to become this award-winning company, award-winning architect, but at the same time to stay true to her belief, to stay true to what she wants to fight for towards a more inclusive environment, and so a more respectful design and architecture for the people. So it is something that we will be talking about today, and she would like to share with us her vision towards more intangible elements, which is very interesting to talk about the making of architecture and to look at that through the lens of intangible. And it is extremely strong in our region when we talk about intangible heritage and how architecture and the practice of Goy Architects contributes to this intangible heritage in Southeast Asia. So with no more introduction, let's welcome Yann. So Yann, the floor is yours. So in search of the intangibles, let's welcome Yann.
Hi, Yann. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and as well as Cosentino. It's a bit strange talking without looking at anyone, but I will try my best to kind of talk about this topic that is actually quite close in my heart, and I've been thinking about it for some years right now. And today I actually want to talk to you about this topic about in search of the intangibles. So just a topic opening. In search of the intangibles, what are these intangibles qualities that we seek in our spaces, and why are they relevant to our times? Intangible qualities such as memories, shared experience, and identity is something that shapes our identity and in turn shape our culture and heritage. So it is also a way for us to reflect of our past, have a foothold of our present, and allow us to navigate into the future. So maybe just a quick introduction to our team. I'm Senru, which is the Singapore lead architects in Goy Architects, together with my partners that is in Jakarta, Desi Angga Devi, as well as Sam, which is based in Chiang Mai. We are a team of 8 right now across whole of Southeast Asia, namely in the countries Singapore, Indonesia, and Thailand. So we have a passion for material research and development, and the idea of working regionally has benefited us greatly in these aspects, as it allows us to engage with the local craftsmen and designers directly and exchange our know-how. So this is quite an interesting module that we saw it when we were in Cirebon. It's actually a rattan chair making mold. So it's things like this that really inspire us daily in what we do in our architectural practice. And we find that there is actually a lot of richness and textures within our region. And there's a wealth of knowledge in the handicrafts that is something that really inspire us daily. So these are some of the material palette that we constantly introduce in our projects, and we find that it really gives us a lot of delight in the projects that we're working on. So in retrospect, within the team, we are always asking ourselves, why is it that we are doing what we are doing? And what motivates us as a team? And we find that innately we are really attracted to these regional textures. And we also wanted to know the bigger meaning of each of this space that we create, and which leads us to reflect on these intangible qualities of space and what it means to us. So throughout history, humans have built shelters of how to protect themselves from natural phenomenon. And these shelters have often grown from simple protective shells to places that provide us with comfort and psychological well-being. And we have also learned that through this pandemic, that we are very intimately, that space very intimately influence our experience and in turn affects our actions as well as our emotions. So I believe that you guys are all familiar with this chart, this Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's a psychological theory by Abraham Maslow that talks about how humans are intrinsically engaged in behavioral motivations. So we see from the two lower tiers of safety needs and physiological needs, and I would term them as tangible qualities that we are able to quantify. So these are the things that gives us warmth, shelter, food, or protection from danger, like, for example, the railings to be 1 meter and not allowing us to drop over, stuff like that. Then the second part that I'm actually interested in is the intangible qualities that we are looking at. So these are the 3 categories, which is the belonging needs. So we talk about love, friendship, comradeship. We talk about esteem needs, which is the need for self-respect, personal worth, as well as autonomy, independence in your own self. And third one is self-actualization, which is reaching your full potential in whatever you do. So I would argue that this chart is relevant in architectural space as it is to human development. If spaces are so intimately entwined in our daily rituals, space that we create has to be designed for more than just functional and physiological needs. It has to address these intangible qualities that we as humans desire, such as space for intimacy, for social contact, for autonomy, pleasure, and a purpose. So we know that Kelvin Lynch talks about a sense of place is the extent to which a person can recognize or recall a place as being distinct from other places and possess a character of its own. And a leading expert in Alzheimer's care also talks about, John Zissel, that a place is a space that holds meaning. Studies in neuroscience shows that words and concepts that holds meaning are remembered and learned more profoundly than non-meaningful terms. And we think that this is also hold the same argument with meaningful spaces. So as architects and designers, the question to ourselves becomes, how can we design for spaces that creates memories? What a big question. So in search of these intangible qualities, our studio's hypothesis is of this 4 following. The first one is talking about a communal shared experience. So it actually addresses the belonging needs. So it talks about how a space should bring around people together so that they could share a common experience, and that would actually make memory within themselves. The second important aspect is to allow for autonomy of movement. This is very important because it means that a person has the ability to yield the space to his demands and not the other way around. So sometimes when we feel very uncomfortable because we feel that we can't do certain things. So this is actually not very good for esteem needs. The third one that we want to argue is that a space should have a very distinct and full sensorial experience. So when we talk about distinctive and full sensorial experience, we are talking about materials palette that actually engages our senses, whether it is visual, whether it is a sense of touch, whether it is by listening, by the sound, or even by or even through movement. And this could be experienced through a different tactile use of materials as well as connecting to nature. And the last but not least, which is reaching our full potential, we are looking at the purpose of the place. Because once there is a purpose, we could actually establish a ritual in a person to achieve its full potential. So the first project, there's 2 projects that I'd like to share with you today. And the first one is actually Sukhothai Farmstay, And the second one, which is a house that we are doing in, which we did in Singapore, which is the Heng House. So starting with Sukasan Thai Farmstay, we will try to show this 4 methodology to see how it applies to our projects. So Sukasan Thai Farmstay is a farmstay that is located at the foot of Mount Gede. So if you look at the mountain behind, it's actually Mount Gede. And it's a very nice location that is perched 900 meters above sea level. So when the client approached us, they had a piece of childhood land that they want to redevelop into an organic farmstay so that they could encourage people from the city to come into this farmstay to get to know how farming is done, where the food comes from, and basically reacquaint themselves to the natural environment. The layout of the farmstay is with this simple T elongated shape. We created 2 quarters of, there's actually an upper courtyard and a lower courtyard. The upper courtyard is hosting about 8 rooms, and the lower courtyards is also having about 4 rooms. And the heart and soul of the place is actually connected by this kitchen and dining area, which allows the users to pick produce from the farm and come to the dining area or use the communal kitchen to cook for their own meals. This is a perspective of the farmstay at night. And what you see on the right is actually the big space whereby everybody comes in together for their dining. So this is the kitchen area that I was explaining to you about, that it's being communal. So what we try to do in our projects is that we're trying to create this sense of communal shared experience. So by creating a programmatic, by a program that allows people to come to the farm to pick their own produce, it creates a common shared experience, which is part of the belonging needs. And it's very important that the farm was actually accessible to everybody at any time that they want, so that they have the ability to move around freely and pick produce easily, and to come back to the kitchen and use the kitchen as they want. So it's slightly different from the concept of like a service resort whereby everything is served to you, because we find that once you give the autonomy of movement to people, then they create another kind of sensation when they are in the space. So this is some of the activities that's done in the farm. There's noodle making sessions, there's pizza making sessions. And we really find that these are the kind of things that people really respond to, rather than you sit down and having people serve food to you. So this whole concept about an open kitchen and open communal dining is a very strong concept in this Sukasan Thai Farmstay. The second aspect that we wanted to talk about is having a distinct and full sensorial experience. Research has also shown that the research is actually done, is quite interesting that I came about this research, that they actually tested on a few students and they put them in a white room with perfect light, perfect temperature, and they put gloves on. And it's observed that after 24 hours, they start to hallucinate, because the body intrinsically needs sensorial experience. And it is not just visual or audio like what we are using now, which is a lot through visual images. It's also about sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of hearing. Basically, we need to use a full sensorial experience to kind of have this connection to the space. So for all our rooms in Sukabumi Farmstay, we try to use textures that is available in the region, like this rattan mat, and we always try to give direct visual connection to the landscape. So this is a very interesting tea house concept that we made for the kids, and they enjoy the movement of moving up to the tea house and climbing down. And with all of the houses, with all of the rooms itself, everyone face a garden or a bamboo valley. So textures also comes in terms of cements and tiles, and the use of local terracotta roof tiles or the local timber that is available in the region. So all this adds towards this sensorial experience that we are trying to bring somebody in this space to have this memory of the space. We worked with the local craftsmen to create a full set of furniture, and it was part of the design intent to keep it a little bit rustic, so that the users could actually feel the textures of the fabric, could actually see the veins on the timber planks and actually feel the different kind of prickly sensation on the rattan mat. So I think that this kind of connection that our studio always try to make by using materials that kind of touch us, literally touch us, it's a kind of a common language that we are always trying to push at. The other space that we design is that we created this large veranda opening that faces directly to the farm. And we find that it is through this creation of pockets of space, like little sitting areas, which is initially meant for barrier to fall, becomes like social spaces for families to gather around, playing little puzzles. And these are the kind of shared experience that would make a difference and will also create a memory for them. Large veranda spaces is also to use to allow us to connect back into the nature. So we always wanted to have full natural ventilated spaces that you are able to listen to the rain when it's coming down and to feel the wetness in the air. Having a little fire pit at the middle of the farm stay also create this idea of a shared experience whereby people could come together to roast their marshmallows, and having this chatter that's around you, or smelling the marshmallow burn, the crackling of the fire. I think all these are combined sensory experience that we as designers have to think about creating spaces to allow for this to happen, so as to create genuine, interesting memories. The other areas that we also kind of use textures is at the entrance area. So we displayed this full cement sand tiles with very nice blue color, and these are all locally made. Yes, in Yogyakarta. And for this mural over here, it's painted by a local artist, and it's actually an architectural student that is studying in Indonesia, and we invited him over to paint this whole mural wall. And we find that the combination of something that is hand-painted, tiles that is handmade, and the warm textures of the terracotta tiles as well as the timber panels adds to the warmth and distinctive sensorial experience of this place. On the other side of the entry, we also used burnt clay tiles, and we cladded it all over this entry area. So giving really a distinctive and different kind of sensorial experience when you're walking through this entryway. So I just wanted to share with you the makings of this cement sand tiles, which I thought is quite interesting. In order for us to add textures to the surface of the cement sand tiles, actually the paper, which is a white paper that is commonly used in Southeast Asian region for nasi padang or like chicken rice, so it's a food wrapping paper. They use it as part of their tile production. So it will be a textured layer below, the oil paper on top, and then they start to pour in like different cement colors, and they would then press it together and have a hydraulic presser, and then they can flip it up into this new textured tile, which I find is very incredible and something that you could only find handmade in this region. And I find that it's something that we should celebrate about. So the other important aspect of Sukasanthai Farmstay is also the management of the whole estate. So the staff of Sukasanthai Farmstay is part of the family when it comes to the service crew. The way that we design is that to allow the service staff autonomy of movement. And how do we do it is that with this central core of this house, whereby there is the intersection between the upper and the lower tiers, we create a very compact service circulation where we have the office, we have the back kitchen, we have the staff kitchen, as well as their accommodation, all entwined into the middle core of these T sections. So unlike other resorts that could be putting away the staff in some other place far away from the visitors, in this program, what we're trying to do is that we're trying to keep them as close to the visitors as much as possible, so that it can actually cut down their circulation time when they are actually assisting people. And the other very important part is that the farm also employs housewives that is around the village, and it allows them autonomy of movement in that sense that whenever the housewives are available, they could come and do some farming. And if, let's say, they have to go back home because of some emergency or they need to pick the kid from school, they have also this autonomy of moving away and picking up the kids and doing other stuff. So this is very good morale for not just the visitors, but also for the staff that is working in Sukabumi Farmstay. I think the last point that is very important would be the whole idea of the purpose and ritual of the space. I think that by doing this project, we really hope that we could inspire people to see the potential in Sukabumi, the richness of environment that the Indonesian actually inherited in their possession, and the ability for them to actually protect their environment. And I find that when a project or a space could really inspire people to do more than for themselves, that means really do more in terms with the environment or for the environment, this is something that we could reach the final purpose or the full potential of a space. So I think I will start with the next project, which is the Heng House. So I think that is actually on a very large scale, which is in Indonesia. And I think now what I'm trying to demonstrate is how does the 4 values also could be translated in a small terrace house, for example. So maybe just to give you a bit of background on the Heng House. So it's a project that was done for my Pilates instructor. So she came to me one day and she was saying, okay, I need a house. I need to house my parents. I need to live there, and I need my Pilates studio to be in the house as well. I'm like, okay, interesting. And this was the original state of the house. As you can see, it's very dark, and there is no cross ventilation. It doesn't look very inspiring in that sense. So a quick architectural intervention that we did was that we reinstated the skylight so that we bring light to the middle of the house. We encourage natural ventilation by putting back the louvers windows on the house itself. We put in plants in the middle of the courtyard. And most importantly, the big gesture that we did was that we flipped the kitchen to the front of the house. I think that this is one of the examples that we're trying to share when we're talking about communal shared experience. A lot of times, memories are actually made in the kitchen or in the dining area. And this is actually a very bold move for Sandra, which is the client, who says that, no, I really want the heart and soul of the space to be the kitchen. So by doing so, what we did was that we shifted the kitchen all the way to the front. So whenever you enter the house, you will always be greeted with a smell of bread or like the mom's cooking and stuff like that. And I find that it's really a very enjoyable sensorial experience when you enter into the house, because you have such nice welcoming senses that is inviting you into the house. So the second part that we want to talk about is also about the autonomy of movement. So why it's very important is that Sandra is living with her parents, and at the same time, they host a lot of guests. So it is very important for the parents to have their own sense of space as well. So if you can look at the layout, we actually allocated the parents' bedroom to the end, which actually have another access. So this terrace house actually have a very interesting layout that they allow for dual access from the front and also from the back. So what it means is that the dad would be able to have autonomy of space going out and in of the house, and Sandra would also have a separate kind of entry from the front going up to her space, so that if they want to have their privacy, it could be still done. And it's interesting that the parents really, or the father really enjoyed the garden that is placed very close to the kitchen outside. And he would grow his bananas or his herbs so that he can put them in his food. And he always does a lot of composting as well. So autonomy of movement is very important because it makes us feel independent. It doesn't make us feel reliant on the person that we are living on. And we want to encourage this kind of esteem for a person, especially older folks, so that they feel rejuvenated and they don't feel dependent on the people that they are living with. So as you can see, his little corner that's at the back. And yeah. The third part that we will not talk about is actually having this distinct and full sensorial experience. And when I was talking to Sandra, what struck me is that she's really interested in Southeast Asia sensibilities, like designs and sensibilities. And something that struck to her is really this reclaimed windows that is available in Southeast Asia. So what we wanted and intended to do was to search for all these dilapidated windows that is in Yogyakarta. And we did a whole trip trying to source for it, and we rejuvenated it, and we pieced them together like a zigzag puzzle. And what is interesting is that all these windows are still functioning as a real window. It is not just as a facade clad treatment. And we find that having this process of understanding Sandra's characteristics of her love for Southeast Asian antique and antiquity, this idea of having textures of the reclaimed windows into his space is very fitting of her character and of her style. So I think the last point that we want to talk about is how can this house actually fulfill this full potential or its purpose of rituals. So basically, for Sandra, it's very important that she is very important that the house, it's not just for her, but it's also for friends and family, for people that is in need of some mobility exercise, and that she could actually help them in their mobility exercise, in their movements, in terms of using Pilates. And I think for her, this is a sense of fulfillment because she's able to help people and to constantly having conversations with their neighbors or friends or families that's coming into the house. So I think that when we talk about intangible qualities, I would like to go back to these 4 strategies or 4 ways that we could kind of reinforce this idea of intangible feeling. So the first one is really about communal shared experience because it is a belonging need. The second is the autonomy of movement, again, because it is very important for a person to feel that they are in control of the space. Third one is having distinct full sensorial experience because we want to engage all our senses, not just visual, but every single senses that's available, connection to nature. And the third and the fourth, which is the most important, is actually having a purpose for the space. So when you have a purpose or a meaningful purpose for the space, it really elevates the space to another level. And I'd like to end off with this saying. So space is what shapes our activities, rituals, and hence our memories. This memories is what in turn shapes our identity, which helps us to reflect on our past, gain a foothold in the present in order for us to plan for our future. So design is like a reflective tool. It is a signifier in space to talk about our memories and culture, encouraging discussion of our heritage. And these are the intangibles qualities that we seek. Yeah, I hope I could make sense of it all.
You did. Thank you. Oh. Thank you so much, Jenru. It was amazing. I was listening really carefully and religiously, you know, about what you were saying, and there is quite a lot. There is quite a lot in what you have shared with us, and thanks again for bringing us like through this journey. Like for a short while, we were with you in Indonesia, and that was amazing. I think we are all missing this autonomy of movement that you are talking about, and to share with us this very deep project in Indonesia was a great journey. So I don't even know where to start because I have so many questions. Well, you talked about the idea of the shelter, and that's what you started with, and it is true that in the project that you are providing, there is this whole idea of is beyond comfort. It is to find peace, So that's my feeling, that's my emotion when I look at your project, and especially the two that you shared. Even in the house with the father, it seems that the people are finding peace in the project. So how is it? Because of course you were in Indonesia when you were doing the project. How is it that you could deal between the built environment and the outside environment, and to have this harmony between the two? Because you talked about all of the spaces having an interaction with the outside, but I'm very curious about the balance between the inside and the outside, and how peaceful are the spaces?
I think that a lot of this design intent was, all these design projects that I'm showing you is done a few years ago. And I feel that a lot of times we are doing it subconsciously. I don't know why, but a lot of design kind of aspects, because other than today's talk, I wasn't really thinking about it. But I thought that a lot of this gesture that we did is really quite subconscious, like how we just wanted, whenever we design a space, we are always thinking about, how can we have like the best hangout space? Like, how can we create like, wow, this area whereby people could really relax and to really feel in tune with nature. I think these are the small little things that has always been in our heads when we design. And when we look at a 3D perspective, we are not really looking out for like, how the proportion looks like and stuff like that. For us, it's like, okay, so who is going to sit where and what they're going to do over there and stuff like that. So I think these are questions that we often ask ourselves whenever we are correcting a space, that it's not just about, the proportions of this is not right, because I think that is not really the most important aspect. For us, what we think is important is really how do people move around it. Can they move around? Can they take control of the space? How would they occupy the space? Is there enough privacy for them? Is there enough openness for them? So these are like things that just keeps on popping into our heads when we are just designing. So I think that maybe, I think that's why we started to think about these intangible qualities. Like, what are they? Why are we asking ourselves so much stuff about their movements and how they feel, and putting our shoes in them and stuff like that.
And in this, so it's highly human. It's really the feeling of being human, and like, of course you talk about sensorial experiences and so on. And since you talk about composition, that of course we compose spaces, but how is it about the ergonomy of the space? When I say the ergonomy of the space, it is the level of comfort. You talk about the touch, the texture, the materiality, but even like sitting down, what you get to see when you're sitting, and what you get to see when, even in the house, when they are doing all of the movements. So is that something that it is the recipe of Goy Architects to look into the human touch of things?
I think maybe because we also do a lot of interiors. So our projects, we do both external as well as the internal space. So it's very important for us to know where to place the chairs. What kind of chairs do we buy, or what kind of design do we choose? Like, how do people sit when they're on the chair? And because how you sit will affect how you feel, and whether it's serious chair, whether it's like a lounge chair, So I think things like that is, I think subconsciously, I think we do think about it. And maybe maybe it's a recipe in our studio. I think so.
Okay, and I will talk about another recipes, because when we look at your architecture, it is intrinsically sustainable, and without being loud, such as like putting green on the facade and therefore this is a green building. Not at all. You are really taking references from vernacular architecture across our region that is very strong, and the farm stay is exactly this. You can really feel the history behind it. So can you share with us a little bit more about your approach to sustainability?
I think the first role that the first way that we kind of approach our projects is that because there's always this connection of external and internal. we always wanted to make this space, especially in our Southeast Asian climate, there is this possibility for us to have this very open, porous envelope of buildings, whereby you could get the wind to come in, you could feel the different atmosphere that is around the house. And I think that this is a very important aspect of design, part of the distinct and full sensorial experience strategy that we bring it in. And somehow it also ties into the sustainability values, because by opening up the envelope, you don't use as much AC, air conditioning, and you could use natural ventilation to ventilate your space down. I think that we look back often to, examples that is done in Southeast Asia region. Before the technology came in, before all this AC came in, how do people build their house? And you find that there's a lot of available passive strategies that is in the region already, and we just have to kind of like study it again, make it relevant, and apply it in our modern settings. So that's why I think probably the team is so fascinated about what is available in the region, and then and also maybe purpose of our team to be across 3 nations, so that we can always ask, hey, in Indonesia, what are you doing? Like, hey, in Thailand, how do you do it last time? Like, oh, then we'll always be like having so much delight actually comparing our differences. And I think that this is also something very strong for the studio as well, to have these differences, to have the conversation, so that we can kind of see what is it that we can learn and what we can possibly avoid moving forward into the future. Yeah.
So, and in this, because you say that you have your colleagues, your partners that are across the region. So, how is that? So, where did you all meet, and how do you negotiate in this? Because Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, although we are from the same region with similar practices, but also with their specificity. So, so how did you all meet, and how do you negotiate in these differences?
I think the very funny story is that Jessie and Sam used to work in Singapore, and then they were saying, okay, I want to go home. And they were saying, then I was like just suggesting to them that, oh, maybe we can still work together. Like, let's just not give up hope. And then we just go back, we try it. And the system that we use is a BIM information modeling. So we have a small little cloud system in my house. And then all of the models is actually synced up to this BIM model. And technology has actually allowed us to design together. It is not about like a linear process whereby one person does a task and then we continue and stuff like that. It's really about integration of like everybody around and onto this model, and we could change and we could see the direct feedback of how they change. And I find that this is a nice way to work, because our initial intention was really that we don't want boundaries to be one of the criteria that we can't work together. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? In our age of technology, I mean, we should be able to work boundaryless as well. I think after that, it was, I think, more exploration in the region's craft. Then we realized that, hey, it's really interesting to hold on to each other so that we have different inputs and support each other in our projects.
And so in this time of like very difficult time of like COVID, so not being able to travel, how do you continue working with them? And especially if there are some sites that you cannot visit, for example, because we can feel that the farm stay, we feel that you went there, and so you could embrace fully the site. How do you do it for other sites where you cannot necessarily go there, and vice versa?
Majority now of our projects, so we do have one project in Indonesia right now, but it is still in the design phase. So it's still not as bad that we have to go down site all the time. But whenever the project is based in other countries, we would really have to rely strongly on our colleagues that is based in the country itself to oversee and to kind of run the projects. Before COVID, when we have projects in Singapore, I used to fly them over, and then we would see the final product so that we kind of have a very close connection to what we draw and what we design. And right now, the closest that I can mimic is using a 360 camera. So this is our new gadget. And then we use a 360 camera. We take the whole place down, and then we upload it. And at least at least they have the possibility of like moving around the space by themselves and to see the space. Yeah, so this is how we do it right now. Yeah,
I think that's great, and that's very interesting for our audience as well that has been working remotely. Like so we hear you, we feel you, we understand what you are doing, and so we can really learn from your approach. Maybe like just to go back a little bit to the farm stay, because you said in conclusion that you could see the potential in the project and even with the client and with the end users to even to protect the environment, for example. What are for you the learning lesson from this project that you can utilize or that you are utilizing in some of your other projects? Because that project was done a few years back. You have grown since then. So what are basically the learning lesson that you had there, and especially towards the environment or finding that were like, oh wow, that's very interesting, and then you are utilizing that for your next step?
I think definitely materials is something that is an eye-opener when we were starting in Sukabumi Farmstay. So this is the first project that we started to source in Indonesia, and then we realized that there's so many materials that's available: the cement and tiles, the ceramic tiles that's available, or even like terracotta stuff that's available in Indonesia, and the weaving and all these textures that's available. So that is like a material source of its own already. So that's one thing that we kind of picked up. I think, but the more important lesson that we kind of learned from Sukabumi is that we didn't know that the impact of this was actually so big. Like we just wanted to create like a homestay, like somebody comes in, we pick some vegetables, and we slowly started to see the potential as well as the impact that this homestay could actually bring, which is, to me, is really quite heartening.
Yes.
That designers could actually have this impact. And that we have this impact to make a change. So yes, and I think that this is very important because sometimes I get lost in Singapore's projects. Yann. and and like I think the idea is for us to really seek out projects that actually makes a difference. That's why I think today's lecture we talk about all these intangible qualities.
Yes.
Because it's much more than just an aesthetical kind of an approach. It's really more of a mind and spiritual, and what is the problem that you're trying to solve for the society. I think this is a very strong and important part that I learned in Sukabumi Farmstay.
And I think that's a very important message, because that replaces the architect and the role of the architect in the society to basically create memories for everyone in a highly inclusive way, and to design with a purpose. And that's something that is extremely important. So I'm very happy to hear this, because we tend to forget that. We tend to forget what the architect can bring to the society that is beyond aesthetic, that is beyond profit or glory of someone, but more to benefit to the society and to the people at large. So I think that's a very strong message, and thank you for reminding this and to our audience that being an architect, it is contributing to the betterment of our planet and the betterment of our people. So that's something very strong. Thank you, Janru, for reminding this, and with all of the emotion that goes with this, and especially in this hard time. So I do have a few other questions. So basically, like for you at a young age, you've been doing already so many things, So which is quite diverse. The diversity of the project, the diversity of the client, the diversity of the site and the environment. So what's next for Goy Architects?
I think we are just trying to take our pace. We don't want to think too much. Just one step at a time, and hopefully we survive. And hopefully, we get more meaningful projects down the road. I think that's all we really are looking out for. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's in terms of a meaningful project. I think you already had quite a fair bit in your bag of a meaningful project, and I'm pretty sure that there are plenty lining up for you. One of the very last questions that I have is we have some young audiences in our talks. So what kind of advice could you provide to younger generation that are getting graduated or that are even opening their own firm? Because you took a leap of faith with your partners to establish Goy Architects, which is very, brave. So what kind of advice could you provide to our younger audiences from your experience?
I wish them all the courage that they need. I think that is something that is very important for them to be themselves, to know what they are interested in. So just go for your own path. You should really go for something that you are passionate about, that you believe in, and just try it. You don't have to worry about things too much. You are still young. You have time to try. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's okay to fail. But I think it's important to take this courage to try something that you really are passionate about, because time is really fleeting, and I think everybody should just grab hold of it and do something about it.
I think that's a very good advice, and a very heartwarming advice as well. That I cannot repeat even more. But I think that failing is fine. And that we learn from our failure, and especially when we are young, we do mistakes, which is perfectly okay, and we learn from that, and we are even stronger and even better. So that brings me to the end of the talk of today. It was very one of the most heartwarming talks that we had this far. I wish I could come with you to Indonesia and to feel and to experience that wonderful space that you designed, and I look forward for more creation from Goy Architects that I'm sure we will see in publication and so on. So very much looking forward to it, and I hope that Goy will grow. Not only in Singapore, but also in the region, Thailand, Indonesia, as a strong fraternity and sisterhood of architects across the region. So thanks again. I think, I don't know if Maria will come back to give a closure address, but yes, I think Maria is back. So thanks again, Janu. Stay a bit more, dear audience, and Maria will give a closing address.
Yes, hello again, Senru. Well, wonderful. I think it was a wonderful exposure and topic in search of the intangibles. I think it's very poetic, right? And how important is the multisensory journey to create and design a space. The feelings and the sensations produced from different texture that amplify even more the sense of touch. So I don't have much to say, and it has been an honor to have you and how you make us think about the intangibles. So thank you very much, Senru. It was a pleasure to meet you. And well, to our audience, thank you again for supporting TAB Series every month. And my dearest Yann, it's always a pleasure to work with you and to have you month by month. Okay, so see you all next month, August already.
Yes, wow. Thanks again, and see you in August. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Senru.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.